Briahna, what's on your radar?
Well, Robbie, I was thinking, I can't pinpoint precisely when the Democratic Party lost the plot, but when establishment Democrats attacked Bernie Sanders for securing a soft endorsement from America's most popular podcaster, I felt sure something important had shifted. Democrats had long been facing an identity crisis. Remember, Barack Obama was supposed to be the apotheosis of everything right and good and multicultural and unbought, the best the Democratic Party had to offer. And he just wasn't that great. He came into office with big promises to hold Wall Street accountable, to bring America's healthcare system up to date with single-payer healthcare, to codify Roe v. Wade into law, and nominate Supreme Court justices that would expand and protect the existing rights of American citizens. But you know what happens? None of that. Despite having both chambers of Congress and a supermajority in the Senate, everything fell through, and Obama voters started looking to other outsider candidates like Bernie Sanders and, yes, Donald Trump, to save them from the two-party status quo disaster. 13% of Trump voters in 2016 had once voted for Obama. But this fact didn't cause the Democratic Party to reflect on its messaging or candidate choices. We got Hillary and then Biden, and the best the future holds is apparently a Westworld host too charmless to ever make it into the park. Yes, they're poised to make the same mistakes going forward, coalescing behind a soulless corporate candidate like Pete Buttigieg, who satisfyingly nails the identity politics bingo card without any of the substantive commitments to fighting for minority rights that justify diversity initiatives in the first place. Meanwhile, they are attacking genuine left outsider candidates that offer an alternative to the increasingly unmoored rhetoric coming out of the far right of the Republican Party. Joe Rogan understood the opportunity Bernie presented. He said so, and the Democratic Party attacked him for it, insisting that he must be a right-winger because of his guest choice or his willingness to clumsily wade into subjects about which he's sometimes an expert. And hot takes, which I have often disagreed with, but which one has to admit are often painfully mainstream, even to the left of the average American. And the Democratic establishment, corporate henchmen for the populist party of lore, punished Bernie Sanders for winning Rogan's support, even as it was reported that other Democratic Party candidates had cringily sought to be invited on Rogan's show. This recent clip, this is the guy they've been painting as right-wing for the last few years.
That's why we hate someone like Trump, because Trump believes he should be president and he wants to be president.
Yes, and there's something a little icky about it.
Get him out of here.
Dude, and I think that what was so endearing about Bernie, it was like, this don't want to win, he wants to help. Now, is his idea of help, do you agree with it? That's to be said by the average person. But did you feel like he cared about winning and controlling?
No.
I never got that sense from him.
No, I got a sense that he genuinely looks out for the working class and he genuinely wants to help people. That's why I said that I supported him.
100%.
When he was explaining how his situation works with taxes, that they would just tax a small percentage of speculation, of stock trading, just a tiny percentage of all these trades that are happening constantly, and that money could go to education, that money can go to welfare, that money can go to all these different things that would use to benefit society. I was like, I'm in.
That sounds good.
Is that real? What else are you trying to do? You trying to avoid war?
That sounds cool.
What else are you trying to do? Trying to eliminate student debt?
Hey.
What else? What about healthcare? Free healthcare? I'm in.
Joe Rogan has never had Trump on his show. He did not vote for Trump and said on his show, quote, "By the way, I am not a Trump supporter in any way, shape, or form. I've had the opportunity to have him on my show more than once. I've said no every time. I don't want to help him. I'm not interested in helping him." Okay. But despite that, Rogan is enemy number one to many Democrats, not because he's to the right of establishment liberal media, but I believe because he's of the ways that he's to their left on the material economic issues, the issues that really threaten the status quo. See, my working theory isn't that liberal elites are truly afraid of some horseshoe theory style union between the extreme right and the extreme left, their explanation for the Bernie-Rogan alliance. After all, that would be pretty hypocritical of Democrats who are currently, let's say, helping a blackface-wearing conservative get on the ballot to challenge a progressive black woman running for the Rhode Island State Senate. It would be pretty hypocritical of corporate Democrats who just worked overtime to force North Carolina Green Party candidate Matthew Hoh off the ballot despite his exceeding signature requirements and with the help of Mark Elias' law firm that has served as general counsel for Hillary Clinton. It would be pretty hypocritical of corporate Democrats like Nancy Pelosi, who are trying to keep a bill to deter congressional insider trading off the floor so it won't come to an awkward, self-serving vote. It would be pretty hypocritical of corporate Democrats, who easily, and I think rightly, forgave Jon Stewart after he apologized and moved away from the bigoted rhetoric that used to be all too common in this country just a short time ago.
As always in these debates, it's left to the longest shot to say the craziest thing. I give you Ohio Representative Dennis Kucinich.
I would nominate any gay to the Supreme Court, or lesbian or bisexual or transgendered person to the Supreme Court.
Yes, yes. All rise for the Honorable Justice Chick with Dick.
Oof. Now, I'd argue that the reason so many folks went after Dennis Kucinich, like Jon Stewart did in that clip, was the same reason that Rogan poses such a threat. Both men are open supporters of the kind of wealth taxes and social safety net projects that would enormously benefit average working Americans, but would somewhat interfere with the ability of corporate elites, equestrians on both the left and the right, from Soledad O'Brien to Ann Romney, from growing their literal and proverbial stables. Democrats are having an identity crisis. Only 31% of Democrats, that's just Democrats, want Biden to run again. And neoliberal fever dream Pete Buttigieg is now beating Biden in the New Hampshire polls. Though, to be clear, he did that in 2022. Pretty much everybody beat Biden in New Hampshire. Amy Klobuchar beat Biden in New Hampshire. Elizabeth Warren beat Biden in New Hampshire. The Democrats are flailing though, and it feels like there are millions of air traffic controllers on the proverbial runway gesturing wildly in the direction of populism. Hey Democrats, try attacking members of your own party who are openly corrupt. Use executive power while you have it to cancel student debt, tax corporate price gougers, open women's healthcare facilities on federal lands. Joe Rogan is once again doing you the favor of explaining it to you. Just act like you give a damn. Do something sincere. Be honest about the mistakes that were made in, say, the COVID rollout, and explain how you're going to avoid repeating them with monkeypox. Beat Make America Great Again by showing us all exactly how America can be great. But here's what the Democrats are doing instead.
You can't be pro-insurrection and pro-cop. You can't be pro-insurrection and pro-democracy. You can't be pro-insurrection and pro-American. There can be no greater responsibility than to do all we can to ensure the safety of our families, our children, our community, our nation, and our law enforcement officers. I will always meet that duty, just as you do every single day as members of a critically important organization.
Someone, anyone, please tell me, who is this for? Who ordered this half-warmed over dish? Who among us had zombie cop booster on their bingo card? Look, everyone wants more safety. Tons of Americans are concerned about rising crime, but fund the cops harder? Is that really the position Democrats want to take weeks after the bloated Uvalde Police Department proved what leftists have been arguing since Biden's notoriously ineffective and destructive 1994 war on crime bill? That throwing money after the police does not, in fact, result in more safety? Abigail Spanberger, Virginia Democratic representative, whose hobbies include spying with the CIA, courting affluent Republican voters, and punching left, is applauding Biden's new initiative with the enthusiasm of a trained SEAL. I'm so glad to see the White House commit to getting 100,000 additional police officers on the nation's streets, she tweeted. But she, as always, is wildly out of step with the Democratic base. You know, not the donors, but the ones you actually need to vote for you, and not just fund your campaign. Did he make the announcement at Uvalde Robb Elementary School? Tweeted one disappointed voter. Remember when Biden apologized for the 1994 crime bill and then did it again in 2022, observed another? Skyrocketing funding for the police and military while the planet burns, the pandemics rage on, and infrastructure crumbles, this isn't irrational spending. It's about ensuring ruling class safety in the face of social collapse. Couldn't have said it better than that tweet myself. Literally nobody asked for this. As Brooklyn College sociology professor and author of End of Policing, Alex Vitale, explained, when politicians have no plans to address poverty, homelessness, racial injustice, opioid overdoses, inadequate health care, etc., they turn to police to paper over their failures with more violence and mass incarceration. Police funding is up 179% since 1977 in inflation-adjusted dollars. Guess how much of a dent we've put in poverty during that time? It hasn't budged. The 1977 minimum wage of $2.30 an hour, that's $10.66 in today's dollars. So we've moved backward on that front. But good luck trying to get the Democratic Party or the Republican Party to focus on raising the minimum wage, a policy that won even in Ron DeSantis' Florida. No, they're doing this instead.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No, absolutely not. Okay, thank you.
Meanwhile, I gotta say, Republicans are setting up more assists for Democrats than Draymond Green could ever dream of. I mean, look at this. A conservative school board candidate in Florida says doctors who help trans kids should be, quote, hanging from trees. I mean, look, I get that libs of TikTok is cringe, but this isn't just some pink-haired college kid doing the most on a selfie cam. This is violent rhetoric from someone angling to have actual control over kids' lives. Turning Point USA was recently forced to condemn neo-Nazi protesters that, for some reason, keep showing up at their events. Ron DeSantis is overseeing one of the most unaffordable housing markets in the country, in Florida, where a record number of people pay more than 30% of their income on housing. At the same time, Florida was slower than most states at distributing $870 million in federal housing assistance, and conservatives in the state attacked the successful 2020 ballot initiative for a $15 minimum wage. I cannot stress enough that there are a multitude of openings here for Dems. The bar is on the ground. Unfortunately, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And if Democrats do what I suspect they're going to do and fumble the ball, well, there's always Dem exit. Abigail Spanberger is probably going to blame the left for the Democratic Party's failures anyway. Might as well make it count. So, Robbie, look, I confess, kind of triggered seeing that Joe Rogan clip because it reminded me about the insanity of the 2019-2020 primary race, how there seemed to be so much opportunity in the world, so much opportunity for coalition building, so many voters that were Obama voters that had become Trump voters who were interested again in this independent Bernie-style candidate, and seeing over and over again how the Democratic Party acts useless in many respects, but is always on the ball when it comes to derailing genuine left candidates, whether it's someone like Bernie Sanders or Matthew Ho. It's demoralizing. And even though things are really bad for Dems right now, the economy is difficult. It's a difficult incumbency to deal with. There are opportunities, and you can see that because conservatives are grasping for those opportunities, even if they're doing so in bad faith. They understand the value of populism, the appetite people have for anti-interventionism, and they are at least making the right noises. And it is frustrating that the party that I would argue should be doing it in good faith is not only not doing it, they're doubling down on some of the biggest mistakes of their past.
Yeah, I mean, what can I add? That's exactly what's happened. Democrats are losing these voters. We see it in the poll results. We see it just in public sentiment. We see it then in the treatment of figures who were straddling that line or were shepherding that transformation. We're attracting independent-minded people who cared about class issues, who were acting as bridges for those voters to come into the Democratic Party. People like Joe Rogan are now have been rendered pariahs by a small cabal of media elites, essentially, and I guess party operatives. It's more the media than anyone else. Maybe they're taking their cues from specific party elites, and they're setting the agenda, and it's an agenda for failure, for utter failure. The Republicans don't even have to do much; they just have to sound open to these voters, and they're winning them just by sounding open to them. And then they're doing it's some of the extreme, crazy stuff that you were calling out here that makes me and basically everybody who's not like a hard right ardent Trumpist roll their eyes, but. Is there enough of that to make those voters say, ugh, I can't stomach these people? Doesn't seem like it.
Right. It's on Republicans to lose.
Yeah.
You know, it's their game to throw, and I suspect they're not going to throw the game, unlike the Democrats.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks for that, Briahna. We'll have more Rising in just a minute.